Hi, this is Matt with Bob Johnson's Computer Stuff. Today I'm going to be showing you how to replace or install the wireless LAN on a CF31 Mark I and on a CF19 Mark IV. We're going to start off with the CF31 Mark I. The first thing you'll need is obviously your computer, the replacement card, and a couple of screwdrivers. So I've already taken the screws out of the bottom of this one just to make it a little bit quicker. But in your case, you'll have to go through and you'll have to remove the screws. They're located along the edges of the computer. And then there's 6 more that are recessed into the computer that are longer than the rest of the ones on the bottom lid. So once you have those removed, you can go ahead and just pull the lid off. The first time you open it up, it may not just lift up as easily as this one is, because I've already had this one open. If you haven't had it open before, sometimes you might need to use a flathead screwdriver and carefully pry it open the first time, because there is a rubber seal along the outer edge that the first time you open it makes it a little difficult to open. Make sure not to lose any screws in the process. Make sure to document where the screws go, or at least set them to the side in a manner in which you'll remember where they go. If you do lose the screws, we do offer screws for the Panasonic Toughbooks on our website at bobjohnson.com. Okay, so for the wireless LAN on the CF31 Mark Is, the wireless LAN is underneath the wireless WAN card, underneath the board that the wireless WAN card connects to, and underneath the Bluetooth board. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to have to remove all those. But before you actually start start opening up your computer, I forgot to mention this earlier and actually forgot to do this. Pull the battery from your unit so you have no power going to your unit. You don't want to be messing with your computer without pulling the battery, so you don't shock yourself and so you don't fry any of the components on the board. So the first thing you want to do is, if you have a wireless WAN card in here, which this unit happens to have one, you're going to remove the card. Just gently lift up these cables here. They're small little cables. The green goes on this side where it says aux, and the gray goes on the side that says main on the card. Just remember the locations they go to, so when you go to put it back on, you can put it in the right spot. And there's 2 little silver screws that hold the WAN card in place. Just go ahead and remove those. Once you remove those, the card should just pop up and you just slide it out. Now that you've done that, you're going to need to remove this board here. It's the board that the wireless WAN card actually connects into. There's 2 ribbon cables that you're going to have to disconnect from this board before you take it out. And there's also 4 screws. The 2 ribbon cables, one is right here. It is a white cable. The other one is this cable here, this orangish cable. It's not that difficult. Just carefully lift the tab up that holds the cable in place and gently slide it out of position. Do the same for both cables. And then once the cables are loose, you can remove the screws. There's one here, one here, one here, and one here. Okay, once you remove all 4 screws, you're going to lift it up on this side first and then pull it out. If this black plastic piece cover comes off, you can take it out or you can just slide it back into position. Either way, it's going to have to go back into place after you're done installing or replacing the wireless LAN card. The next thing you'll have to remove is going to be the Bluetooth card. There's 2 screws, one on the bottom right corner and then one in the upper left hand corner of it that's hidden underneath the ribbon cable. So just gently pull the ribbon cable up and the little plastic cover underneath of it, and there's a screw there that you'll need to remove. And there's a screw here on the opposite corner that you need to remove. And then the board will lift up, and you can you can now see the wireless LAN card, the LAN card, which is used for connecting to your wireless networks. It's also known as Wi-Fi. There's a little plastic tab on it that's got a piece of metal in the center, a flexible piece of metal. You can just gently pull it off and out of the way, and you can put it back on later. Once you have the card opened up where you can view it, there's 2 screws holding it in place. There's 2 cables connected to it. You're going to want to disconnect the 2 cables. If the Bluetooth card is getting in your way, you can just disconnect the cable and move it to the side, or you can just hold it off to the side. There are 2 pins that have cables connecting to the wireless card. The white cable goes to the first pin on the side closest to the USB ports over here, and the black cable connects to the pin closest to the RAM. You'll want to lift those 2 cables off of the connectors and unscrew the 2 screws holding the wireless LAN card in place. Once you remove those cables and the screws, it'll pop up at an angle, and you can just simply slide it out of place, and then you can install your replacement card. In this case, I don't have a replacement card. I'm just going to put the same card back in place. But for your case, you would just install the replacement card. You would just put it in at the same angle that you took it out at, slide it in position nice and firmly. Make sure the wires are out of the way so they don't get pinched underneath of it, and carefully push it back down and hold it in place as you put the screws back in place. The screws for the wireless LAN card should be 2 small little screws. There's 2 small silver little screws that should hold it in place. Then you just put the cabling back in place. It should just pop back in place for these cables. Like I said, the black goes on the side closest to the RAM, and the white goes on the side closest to the USB ports. And it'll make a slight popping sound as you pop the cable back on. The next step is to put the Bluetooth card back in its position and reconnect the cable if you've disconnected the cable. You want to be careful with these cables because you can bend them and break them, so you want to be careful when putting them back on. Once you slide the card back in its proper spot, you'll go ahead and just put the screws back in place that you removed to lift the card out. The next step is to put the wireless WAN board back in. Not the card itself, but the board that the card connects to. You want to lift these cables up out of the way, and you're going to want to slide it into position at a slight angle. and it'll slide into that black plastic piece that starts to fall out when you take the card out. Like I said, make sure none of the cables get caught up underneath of it before you actually put it in position. And then there's little standouts that it sits on. There's two plastic standouts that it sits on, and once it's on both of those, and you can see this, the screw holes line up where the screws are supposed to be, you know you have it in the correct position. You'll just go ahead and put the 4 screws back in place first before connecting the ribbon cables. And then you just put the ribbon cables back in place. They should just slide back into position. And the cables connector will just pop back into position. Then you go ahead, and once you have the screws back in place and the cables back in place, if you have the wireless WAN card, go ahead and reinsert the wireless WAN card and screw it back down into position. The 2 screws that hold this in position are similar to the ones that hold the wireless LAN card in position. They're 2 small silver screws. Then go ahead and pop the cables back into position. And that's how you would install the wireless LAN card. The only steps left are to put your bottom plate back on and put all your screws back onto the bottom plate. And that's all you have left for hardware. For the software, I have another computer already set up with the software installed, with the software downloaded. Just bear with me for a moment while I get the computer lined up. And I have an external keyboard and mouse to hook up just to make it easier so I don't have to block the screen while I'm showing you what to do. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is go to a web browser to download your wireless drivers. Or, well, first thing you're going to do is make sure you're connected to the network, which apparently I was not. Okay then, now just go ahead and go to Google. I just misspelled it. And type in Panasonic drivers. And the first link, it'll say downloads, computers, and tablets supported Panasonic, is the page you're going to want to go to. You'll see where it says drivers, BIOS, EC, and more. That's where you're going to want to go click. That'll take you to this page here. and you'll click individual drivers. From here you can get drivers for most any Panasonic Toughbook. The first step is to choose what you're looking for. I always just choose all drivers and look for any drivers I need, or you can narrow it down to various different options for chipset, audio and graphics, applications and utilities, communications and networking, various different options, but I always just choose all drivers. The second step is to choose your model number. In this case, it's a CF31. Then your model version, which you can tell by the first letter or number after the model number. So if you have a CF31, you'll have something similar to CF31A or CF31G or CF31B, V, J, M. There's multiple different letters. They each represent something different, but you can tell, it tells you right here based off the first letter after 31 which generation of the 31 you have. In this case it's a Mark 1, so I'm going to choose the first one there. Then you're going to choose your operating system. If you don't know what version you're running, you can just bring up your system information page and it'll tell you right on the screen. I'm running Windows 7 Pro 64-bit. So that's what you're going to choose for your operating system. And just go ahead and choose your language and click search. And from there, just search for wireless LAN. And it's part of the way down the page. It'll say wireless LAN driver. This can only be installed installed to a LAN model, which is not entirely correct. Even if your computer doesn't come with the wireless LAN, you can still download and use the driver. It's just will only work if you have the wireless LAN card installed. Windows may pick up your drivers for the wireless LAN automatically. You only have to do these steps if it doesn't pick it up automatically. But you would click download to go ahead and download the file. I would always click save instead of run, especially for the wireless LAN. For some reason, the wireless LAN always takes a while to download. So I would normally click save and then come back to it and run it once it's done downloading. I already have it downloaded for this example, so I'm just going to hit cancel and go to my downloads folder where I have it saved. Once you have the file downloaded, go ahead and run the file. It's going to pop up, and it should pop up and ask you if it's okay to run the file. You go ahead and give it permission to run the file and just accept the licensing agreement. It's going to by default extract the files to this default location. Almost all of the drivers for Panasonic, when you download the drivers, it will default extract the files you need to the C drive under a folder labeled util2. So you'll just click OK. It'll start extracting the files. And once it's done extracting the files, a window will pop up saying that the files have been extracted. It may take a moment for the files to extract, so just give it a moment, and once the files are done extracting, it'll pop up with a window saying that the file is extracted. The speed at which your files extract depends on if you have a solid state drive, if you're running the i5 version or the i3 version of the CF31, and how much RAM you have in the computer. I'm just going to try to rerun it. It doesn't appear to. Okay, now the files are done extracted. Now that I went to go to try to run it again. So you'll go to Util 2, Drivers, and then Wireless LAN. Then you'll go to the first folder you see there, and then you choose your operating system. In this example, Windows 7. If it's 32-bit, you choose S32. If it's 64-bit, it's S64. Then you go to the install file and run the setup. Or alternatively, you can just, if you don't care to actually have the software, just the drivers, just go to your device manager, locate the network adapter that's missing, that would be missing the driver. I already have the driver installed, but it'll say network adapter and it'll have a yellow exclamation point next to it. It'll show up under other devices if you don't have the driver installed. And then you would just right-click the driver missing the driver, and you would click Update Driver Software. You would choose Browse My Computer for driver software, and you would direct it to the C drive to the Util 2 folder. And then you would click Next, and it'll search that folder and all subfolders for the correct driver and install it. Once the driver's installed, you have everything in place that you should need for your wireless to now work. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and shut this down, and we're going to move on to the steps to install the wireless LAN card into the CF19 Mark IV. Just give me a moment to get the CF19 into position, and we'll begin with that. Okay, so the CF19 is a little different than the CF31. You still have to remove all the screws. They're located along the outside of the computer. Just go ahead and remove all the screws. Make sure to remove the battery from your computer. I believe the battery has already been removed from this unit, but it doesn't hurt to double check. You don't want to work on a computer with a battery still in the computer. You don't want to have any power in the computer. This one does not have the battery in it. I've already taken it out. Okay, once you remove all the screws around the base, go ahead and just lift open all the port covers, because the port cover is actually attached to the bottom base. So you have to open all of those up in order for the bottom base cover to come off. And I find it easiest just to grab the port covers on the side of the unit and gently lift up the cover. The first time you open it, it'd be more difficult to open up than any other time. With the wireless LAN card on the CF19, it is actually much easier to do than the CF31. Once you have the bottom plate off, you just have the card right here in the open. You don't have to remove any other cards out of your way. It's just right here in the open in the center of the board. It's got a white and a gray cable connecting to it. The white cable is closest to the CMOS battery. The gray cable is closest to the hard drive connector right here. Go ahead and remove the white and gray cable. And there's two small little silver screws that hold the card in place. Just go ahead and remove those. And the card will pop up at an angle, and you can slowly pull it out and try not to drop it like I just did. And then you would just insert your other card. For this example, there's nothing wrong with this card. I don't need to replace it. This is just an example. So I'm just going to use the same card and put it back in place. Then you would just put the screws back in place first on the card, holding the card in position. After which you would go ahead and you would pop the cables back in position. Keep in mind this is a Mark IV, so it's a CF19R. Most of the CF19s are about the same, but the older CF19s use a slightly different card. After you have the cables back in position, just pop the cover back in place. Put your screws back in place around the computer. And then we can move on to the next step, which is the actual software installation. Okay, looks like we're gonna have to make this one a little quick because my battery's almost dead on this CF19. But like in the other part of this video, the part for the CF31, I already have the driver downloaded. So just give me a moment to get the keyboard and the mouse plugged in, so I don't have to be blocking the screen the whole time. And I'll show you. Okay, so for the CF19, you'll go to the same places you went to get the drivers for the CF31. The only difference is you'll choose CF19 instead of CF31, and you'll put in your model number of the CF19. So since I just did it for the 31, I'm not gonna go ahead and do it again. It's very simple, just Google Panasonic drivers and you can get to it from there. I'm just gonna go to my downloads file where I already have the file downloaded and run the file. You'll just look for the wireless LAN driver as you're downloading the driver. And it's the same. It's going to ask you if it's okay for the program to run. You go ahead and give it permission to run. There's the licensing agreement, and then it'll save it in a similar location under the util2 folder, under the drivers folder by default. You can change this location if you want. I recommend you don't, because if you ever forget where it's at, you can always just look up the default location. And my battery just died. Give me one moment. Just bear with me one moment. My battery died. I forgot to charge the battery before the video. I'm trying to grab an adapter real quick so I can show you how to finish this up. Oh, I've got one right here. Just turn my computer back on. Sorry about that. I forgot to make sure the battery was charged before the video. But I've got it turning back on now. I already got it. Sorry about that, my battery just died. Okay, so like I was saying, I suggest you leave it in the default location. Just click OK. It may take a moment for the drivers to extract. They'll extract by default to a folder on your C drive called util2 by default. Just give it a few moments and it will pop up and tell you when it's done extracting the files. Keep in mind the files you download from Panasonic's website will not directly install the drivers. It will just extract the files you need to install the drivers. So you still have to go wait for it to finish extracting the files and go back in and install the software, or manually go in the device manager and direct it to the proper driver. And it's the same with all all software and drivers you get from Panasonic's website, it always does that. It extracts the files typically to a location in the util2 folder. The only exception is typically the mobile broadband drivers. Those typically extract the files to a temporary location and then automatically open up the folder for the software once it's done, and begins with the software installation. Okay, so my files have done extracting. You'll go to your util2 folder, to your drivers folder, to the wireless LAN, to the folder in there, then to Windows 7. And I believe I'm running 64-bit on this one as well. I am, so you'll just click on the S64 file, do the install, go to the folder install, and then run the setup. Or just go to your system properties page, then to device manager, and once it goes to device manager, you go to the missing driver for the networked adapter, which I already have it installed, but you just look for the one that says network adapter that's missing a driver. You right click it, you click update driver software, browse my computer for driver software, and direct it to the util2 folder. And it'll search the folder and install the drivers that you have there automatically for you. That should be all you have to do to get you up and running with your wireless. As you can see here, my wireless is showing up with all the networks in the area. So that's it for today. If you have any questions or comments, just let us know. You can contact me through our tech support email, which is tech_support@bobjohnson.com, or you can give us a call at our toll-free number of 877-202-7788. Thank you. Have a good day.